So again, this is just a chart that shows you what history tells us, that tax increases are not going to fix our economy. 3, we have another one right here.
My name is Mike.
This should be on.
My name is Mike Posey, and I'm from Las Cruces. Congressman Pearce, I commend the House's effort to help try to balance the budget, but $40 billion is just really not.
Say it again a little bit louder.
$40 billion is not very much.
You're right.
$40 billion is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
We need hundreds of billions in order to get things under control. How are we going to go about doing that?
You bet. Where's my, you might as well stay here. You got to teach me technology, which should be easy for you to stay here. Back up one more chart then. That's the one that's going to look like that. So your point addresses this one. Right now, the problem in the country is that we're spending $3.5 trillion and we're bringing in 2.2. And 2.2, you remember from this other chart, is not significantly less than what we've been bringing in the past. These are the revenues that was on the previous chart. And so when President Obama came into office, we jumped the spending almost $1 trillion. It was about 2.6, 2.5, something in that range. Jumped it almost $1 trillion, and then on top of that, put the stimulus spending on top of it. So we have the $1.3 trillion deficit, and you were saying that we basically cut $30 billion. That means we cut the 1.3 T deficit from 1.3 to 1.262, something like that, 270 something. That is not a very significant amount. I've been saying that we can do better and we must be doing better. So then the question comes up, where would those cuts come from and how do you keep it from coming out of people that really are sitting here waiting on it? And the easiest place is fraud. Medicare fraud is almost $100 billion a year, 100B. We only reduced 30B and we could have reduced almost 3.5 times 30B if we just cut the fraud from Medicare. Now this is not fraud where hospitals are overcharging. This is people who set up businesses, fake businesses, and charge Medicare for things that you, a Medicare patient, might receive. Have a lot of fraud in the walkers, wheelchairs, but the big fraud is occurring when people don't even have storefronts. They never deliver anything, and they simply, the one guy was on 60 Minutes, said, oh, I made about $400,000 a month selling things that I didn't have. And the people did exist because they had a Medicare number. He said, I got to playing a game that I would bill the same woman for 4 prosthetics every month. She didn't need any prosthetics, but I billed her for them and they paid me for them. And so that kind of fraud comes with about $100 billion a month. And we say, why can't we at least stop that? Medicaid has an equal amount of fraud, about 20%. So those are the areas that I would go to first. Let's cut the cheats and crooks out of the system before we cut the dollars to the people at the end of the pipeline. Again, your question is very adequate. We cut a very minute amount in this last cycle. We should do better, and I'm on the side saying we can do better. All right, we're going to go right to the middle, 1. We're going to go 2 and 3. We'll take you middle zones up in the high part. Did we lose our... Somebody got the microphone? You carrying it around for me? Thanks. Doing more technology? What are we doing here?
We're trying to get the laser for you. We don't have no batteries.
Laser for you, I'm not sure. Okay, go ahead.
Flip the lever, hold it to your...
Just hold it right up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Jill Montes, Las Cruces. Okay. June 22nd, 2011, Tim Geithner. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner told the House Small Business Committee on Wednesday that the Obama administration believes taxes on small businesses must increase, so the administration does not have to shrink the overall size of government programs. Geithner initially said that the administration's planned tax increase would hit 3% of your small businesses. And Representative Renee Elmer said 64% of jobs that are created in this country are for small businesses, and Geithner conceded her point. Representative Pearce, do you agree with Timothy Geithner and the Obama administration that we need to tax small businesses at a higher rate?
No, I absolutely disagree. And again, we could follow the question up from the Exxon discussion. I was talking to a guy over on the other side of the state, and so I was asking, back when we were talking about, well, people have cash in the bank and we need to create jobs, all this jazz. So I asked what it costs to create jobs to a group like this. One guy raised his hand and says it costs $340,000. That's what it takes for me to create a job. He said, so yeah, you're going to tax. Let's say that we implement Mr. Geithner's plan to tax small businesses more. What we do is we take away his $340,000, we turn it into cash receipts for the government, we take it out of his pocket, and then he can't buy a bulldozer because that's what he runs. For him to create one job, he needs a new bulldozer, and he has to buy a pickup, so it's actually about $400,000 to create a job. And so what we do when we increase the taxes on any business, we take away that capital that would be used to form jobs, and we simply give it to the government, who then redistributes it in whatever fashion that they do. So, no, I don't agree. If we're going to create jobs, absolutely tax policies must be considered. Even President Obama in the State of the Union said, we must reform taxes to businesses in America. He said we're charging the second highest in the world, and at that time Japan was charging more, but since they've reduced. So we're at the highest level in the world, and the President recognizes that we're killing our jobs locally because taxes are one of the costs of doing business, and people simply go somewhere else to do that. And Ireland is finding out right now what happens to their jobs when you go up on taxes. Ireland, back about 15 or 20 years ago, created the Irish miracle. Jobs pouring in, companies pouring in, investing in Ireland. And they did it because Ireland lowered the tax rate from 36%, which is what we have, down to 12%. Companies flocked in. My brother-in-law went to Ireland 15 or 20 years ago and helped build the first Hughes tool manufacturing plant they put over there. They were one of the ones that took advantage. But Ireland began to spend too much. They began to get out of balance here. They began to go up on their taxes. And so this year, my brother-in-law went to Ireland and dismantled the last Hughes tool bit manufacturing facility, and they moved it out. So tax policy will cause jobs to move in and out of nations. We're up against countries that are charging 15%, and we're at 36%. So tax policy has a lot to do with job creation, and I'm thinking we need to create jobs more than any single thing. Two was over in, they were all right, it was right here. It was,
good morning. My name is Kathy Soa, and I live in Messiah Park. And there have been many figures that I have seen about the cost of the war in Afghanistan. One that I saw yesterday was $122 billion a year. So the spending that we are going maybe could be cut down a little. But then I also read the other day in the paper that you objected to the troop pullout in Afghanistan. And I'd like to know why, because I think the best thing we can do for our fighting men and women is to bring them home rather than having them there with their legs being blown off and being sent, needing prostheses and other medical care. So why did you object to that?
Everything has to be looked at with a view for what it costs, but also what not doing it costs. We saw on 9/11 that the cost of not being prepared was about $2 trillion in one day and about 3,000 lives. That was the cost of doing nothing. So I've supported fully from day one, was not there when we voted to go into Iraq, but I have supported that fully because I believe that we're going to fight the war on terror, and I just choose to fight it in their backyard rather than here. I believe fully that if we bring our troops home, that we're going to find the battle here, because the Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Al-Qaeda has said that they intend to annihilate America and annihilate Americans. I don't see a lot of room for negotiation. So I have supported the war there. I feel like that the president's withdrawal was a politically motivated decision. 10,000 troops, either get them all in or all out. I mean, it appeared to be mostly political. But more than that, it sent a message to our field troops that we're going to make the decisions in Washington. I was in Vietnam and on location in Vietnam when a government began to cut funds and cut our ability to do our mission. I remember flying a mission one night. We heard, I was in a C-130 just orbiting over the DMZ, and we heard a jet, F-4 I think, going down, hollering, "Mayday, Mayday, come get us." They landed just about a mile from the ocean. If they were in the ocean, they could have been picked up. One of them, in fact, did land in the ocean. The other one was on shore because they were moving outward. So they picked up the one, but the other guy says, "Come on, man, I can see the helicopter. Come get me." They said, "We're sorry." It's about dark. They said, "We're sorry. We have to call to Blue Chip," which was Hawaii, I think. And then they called back, and he's on his little handheld saying, "Yeah, when are you going to come get me?" Dark's coming in. They're saying after dark, we don't have any permission to come in. And I sat there and I listened while somebody tried to get military approval from first Hawaii and then the Pentagon. And I have an extreme disregard for politicians who will try to run a war over the generals. And so those are my positions. As far as Libya goes, that I thought from day one the president was wrong. We are doing enough. Our taxpayers and our young men and women are sacrificing enough for the cause of world stability, and I think our friends in Europe owe it to themselves and the rest of the world to get involved. If they want NATO to take out Gaddafi or anybody else, then let them pay the bill and let them put their people in. I am not going to vote for Libya or any other extensions. We're fighting two long-term wars. That's enough to penalize our economy. It's enough to penalize our taxes. Somebody's going to have to help me keep the 1, 2, 3s in mind here because we're.
Who's three?
Right, no, it's him. You got to just pass it across.
Sir, we need to stop spending. You're only going to have 19% revenue. These are nice sentiments to go after the scammers, and I agree we should, but you still are going to have to cut spending. Second, we need to stop the war on American citizens. I am tired of the SWAT units creating 40,000 break-ins, or what do they call it, house intrusions. This has got to stop. These SWAT units have got to go. We do not need paramilitary people. We need policemen who are going to keep the peace. I really don't have a question for you. I can go on for a while on this.
Yeah. I mean, and I appreciate I think every one of us feels strongly. There are people on both sides of every question here. And I appreciate the restraint every single one of you has exhibited too. But absolutely, we need to cut the spending here. The 3.5. Now, I'll just tell you as a business guy, I'm telling Speaker Boehner that to cut 3.5 down to 2.2, in my mind as a business guy, is going to be very difficult. If I had a company that was spending $35,000 a month and trying to go to $22,000 a month, I can tell you it'd be very difficult. If in your home you were trying to cut from $3,500 a month expenditures to $2,200 a month, it would be very difficult. So what we need to do is, yes, I agree we ought to be cutting that, but my position in creating jobs is that we need to grow the 2.2. Every time we hire a person, two things happen. Number one is they begin to pay taxes, and the 2.2 incrementally gets better. But then the second thing is they come off unemployment and Medicare, or unemployment, food stamps, and welfare, and the 3.5 goes down. So every job we create has a twofold effect. If we simply cut costs, or if we simply try to grow the economy, it's not going to be good enough. We need to create jobs, and then we have the squeezing together. I think that we can get close enough to where this system begins to balance out. By the way, the real problem is down here, the $15 trillion that we owe in debt. And also, neither party Republicans or Democrats will actually acknowledge this, but we actually owe for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid $202 trillion as we look down the stream for people who are alive today and going to be accessing